So welcome to Chapter 9 of A Course of Love, The Prodigal's Return. So this chapter's treatment of the prodigal's story begins with a reminder of the truth about emotions. As we just learned in Chapter 8, what we think of as our emotions coming from our heart speak the language of the separated self, not the true self. And so, as a result, when we think of our feelings and our emotions in terms of language, we can be misled. Genuine memories, though, have been used by the false self in an attempt to keep us safe, yet still separate. So if you'll remember, the instruction then was to take the actual feeling and use it, experience it, acknowledge it without imposing language on it. So coming from the recognition that even within the separated self language, those feelings originated in an actual memory that we have. So let's take a closer look at what those are. So the first memory that it calls up is that the heart is true. We have a memory that says my heart understands things that my mind does not get. And we trust the things that our heart tells us more than we trust other things. And the distortion then of that actual memory, which is true, is that we have then concluded, oh, I can trust my emotions and my feelings. Now, the problem with that distortion is that our emotions speak from the separated self. So the distortion is not actually giving us the truth, because the separated self is the language that we're using as we call those up. So there's a disconnect there. And our emotions and feelings, as we translate them through language, are not accurate. The actual memory of the heart being true is accurate. So let's go to the second actual memory. I remember that love makes me happy. I remember that when there's love involved, that's a really great experience. I love that part. I love love. The distortion of that concept is that love binds me to others, because I remember that love is joining somewhere, and so I'm going to bind my separated self with that separated self, and together I'll feel better. Of course, it always falls short of our expectations because we're trying to remain separated while we're joining. The problem with that is that love, as it actually is, doesn't bind at all. Love is completely free. Love allows you to be who and what you are and accepts you totally and joins with you. So that's why it isn't satisfying, because it's not accurate. Then the next memory is that all is relationship. We remember that relationship is the thing. We know that's what makes us happy. Well, then the personal self distorts it to say, I can pick and choose my relationships. I'm only going to be in relationship with people that support what I'm doing, that tell me the things I want to hear, that make me feel good, that take care of me, or that abuse me. Whatever it is that I want to feel in a relationship, I'm going to pick and choose the people that are going to be in my life. Well, the problem with that is you're already in relationship to everything. You can't pick and choose because you're not separate in the first place. So again, all three of these are based on actual memories of truth, but have been distorted to the point where we have a false understanding of them and a false translation. So next, he asks us to look at the body. He tells us we made the body. Why do you think you made it to be what it is? He asks us. Well, let's look at it. It's self-contained, but it's destined to self-destruct. Why would we make a body that's self-contained? To enhance the experience of feeling separate. If it's self-contained, I'm completely separated from everything and everyone else. Why would we make it to self-destruct? So that there'd be an end to this madness at some point, so we could try again. It requires constant maintenance. What would be the positive of that? Well, the fact that we would distract ourselves all the time, and it would add to the whole illusion of being separated. Every inch of it is a communication device. It's a receiver and a transmitter. So, in other words, we could sense others, we could sense ourselves as being separate and communicating with them while still maintaining the separation. We also would be able to experience the sensual things that happen in a body that perpetuate the illusion of separation. I'm tasting this sour thing and you're tasting something else. I'm having this experience and you are having that experience. So we made this particular unit intentionally to make separation real and to punish the separated self for separating. Because the body experiences pain and cold, and we've got to pay attention to it all the time, and it just becomes this exhausting process. And therein we created a world of duality so that we can both enjoy being separate and punish ourselves for it. So we can experience pain and we can experience pleasure. So we can have good things happen and bad things happen. So we can have life and the illusion of death. So all of this was intentionally created so that we could have the experience of being separate, even though it's impossible. He tells us to look to the heart. Your misperceptions of your heart remain closer to the truth than any other. So we've misperceived everything, but the misperceptions about the heart are closer to what's real than any other part. Remembrance will help to steal the mind and reveal the truth. In verse 13, he says, in your feelings, especially those you cannot name, lie your connection to all that is. So the ones you cannot name, in other words, when we start naming our feelings, we're moving into the realm of mind. You know, since we were children, we were told to slap a label on our feelings. And as soon as we slap a label on them, we've moved them to the world of duality and the world of the mind. So if we can stick with those feelings that we cannot name, there is truth in there. And on further in that verse, your entire problem, you do not allow anything in your world, including yourself, to be what it is. So the problem with your feelings is that only the separated self is listening to them, because it's speaking the language of the separated self. It's not the feelings themselves that are the issue. It's through the separated self's interpretation of the feelings that they become distorted, judged, evaluated, and labeled. So it's the interpretation of the feelings that causes the problem. And he says that fear blocks the vision of your heart. You believe yourself to be separated and hopelessly alone. And that puts us in that feeling of panic, that feeling of something is terribly, horribly wrong. I'm alone, I'm alone. On that surface level, of course, we have fear. And then that, believing I'm alone and the fear of being alone, causes us to then desire to protect ourselves, our loved ones, the world as we know it, our experiences, or to control our experiences, our loved ones, the world as we know it. And then the next level of that is that we'll project our fear outward. I can't really admit how afraid I am to be alone, so I'm going to project all the things that I think are bad, fearful, or ugly onto you. I'm going to take all of the fears that I have and put them outside of myself and see horrible things happening in the world and see the trauma everywhere I look, and things are just going to hell in a handbasket as I'm projecting all of my fears outward. In verse 23, you feel lacking and so you want. You truly believe you do not have what you need, and so make yourself continuously needy. What would you do with your life if you had no needs to meet? What would you do with your life if you had no fear? These questions are the same. In verse 28, is this not the story of the gifted son or daughter who squandered all the gifts he or she possesses by seeing them not, or by sadly distorting what they might be useful for? So here we've been given all these gifts. We are alive. We are powerful. We are love. We have everything we need. And we've created this experience of being separate, or thinking that we're separate, and we feel horribly guilty about it, and it's not even really possible. So just as the prodigal son thought that his father would no longer receive him and that he'd made a horrible mistake, we put ourselves in this position where we feel like we really messed it up. Verse 34, the only thing that might succeed in proving your place as that of royal inheritor would be if you could fix yourself in the world, restoring it to a previous condition that you imagine you know. And so what we try to do and try to do and try and try and try to do is to fix things. We think, if we could just make this world a better place, if I could just be the person that I know I could be, if I just succeeded in this area or in that area, then I could earn my place, earn my right to live. And it's just headed down the wrong direction. Because what you have lost is missing, but it's not gone. Once you find it, you will know it, because it's the only thing that will bring you happiness, peace, contentment, and a sense of belonging. What is lacking is, and there's only one thing here, union. Because you are love. Love is union, joining, recognizing that you are one with, experiencing yourself as one with. First of all, with the world. Brother or sister, you are not alone. When we make it our mission not to fix anybody, not to change anybody, but to join them, to actually join our hearts with them and join our experience with them, not only do they not feel alone, but we don't feel alone either. And then joining with God. In verse 35, while there is no need in truth for this forgiveness, your desire to be forgiven is a first step away from your belief that you can fix things by yourself. It is the precursor of atonement. So while you haven't done anything wrong, you haven't done anything real, giving up the idea that you can fix things or that you're by yourself, if that means saying, forgive me, help me, I surrender, I give up my need to fix things, then that brings you closer to atonement. And then the third, with the people and the things that you use when we join that. We have used everything. You've used your relationships with employers. Look, I'll do this for you if you give me this money so that I can live. With spouses, I'll do these jobs if you'll do this job. I'll see you in this way if you'll see me in that way. I will bind myself to you if you will bind yourself to me. Strings attached, bargains all over the place. Family, friends, even with stores. I will give you this token of money if you will give me the things I need. And substances, all to supply a lack, all to make us whole. So we've got ourselves caught up in these trade agreements where we use other people, they use us, we use things. It's a mutual society of trading here. And what he's asking us to do is to actually join with the people and the things that we use. Instead of entering into a new trade agreement, to actually join with an employer, to join with a spouse and family, even join with a store, join with the experience of shopping. You trade one usefulness for another in a complex web of use and abuse, and that's how our world maintains itself, by all of us using and abusing each other. So then he goes on to talk about the return. In verse 49, attempts to modify the behavior of abuse are nearly useless in a world based on use. The foundation of the world must change, and the stimulus for this change lies within you. All use ends with joining. For use is what you have traded joining for. Would it not simply be better to end this charade? To admit that you were not created for separation, but for union? So if we give up the whole concept of trying to prove our worth, to earn our value of existence here, to fix everything that's wrong and supply ourselves with what's lacking, if we give that all up and join with our experience and the people in our lives, that is the foundation for the return. Verse 47, he tells us, such is the world God did create, a world so lovely and so peaceful that when you see it once again, you will cry with joy and forget your sadness in an instant. And so we begin our journey of the prodigal's return. And I can assure you that this is real. I can assure you that this material will guide you home to the place of peace and love where you've always been, only now you'll recognize it. So coming up in chapter 10, he tells us, now you must observe your own self and uncover the illusion that you can be used by your body. Stay tuned.